What's up, family? Welcome back. If you're new, welcome to the family. So, I want to talk to you about something that sounds boring at first, the economy. But stick with me, family, because what I'm about to share affects your money, your job, your rent, your gas prices, your future, everything. And a guy named Ray Dalio, one of the smartest money people in the world, just gave a warning. And it's not one of these sky is falling rants. This is based on real patterns he studied over centuries of economic history. And I'm going to break it down from a childlike perspective, no jargon, just real talk. And I promise by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's going on and what we need to watch out for. So, with no further ado, family, let's check out the clip first.
Ask you about something that's on a lot of people's minds, your predictions for the future. And I want to start with the R word. I know you think this is just a piece of it. Of course, I'm talking about a recession. Do you think it is likely that the United States will dip into a recession because of President Trump's tariffs?
I think that right now we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing. And we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession, or it could be handled well. Let's take the debt situation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, very quickly, because I want to be very specific about what you mean. You're saying worse than recession. You're saying this is reminiscent of the 1930s. We should tell our viewers you correctly predicted the 2008 financial crisis. What is your prediction for where the country is headed right now?
Right now, we're at a juncture. Let's take the budget. If the budget deficit can be reduced to 3% of GDP, it will be about 7% if things are not changed. If it could be reduced to about 3% of GDP, and these trade deficits and so on are managed in the right way, this could all be managed very well. I believe that members of Congress should take the pledge, what I call the 3% pledge, that in one way or another, that they will get that budget deficit down to that number. If they don't, we're going to have a supply-demand problem for debt at the same time as we have these other problems. And the results of that will be worse than a normal recession.
So, and just to follow up on that point, worse than a recession, you're talking about the 1930s. What specifically are you warning of? Are you saying that it could be as bad as a depression? What's your biggest fear?
The value of money. What is a storehold of wealth? That is a bond. In other words, one man's debt is another man's assets, bondholders. And so we're going to be in a situation where if that storehold of wealth is in jeopardy because there's too much supply and demand and so on, and we have a monetary inflation, we will have great disruptions. And that could be like the breakdown of the monetary system in 71. It could be like 2008. It's going to be very severe. I think it could be more severe than those if these other matters simultaneously occur. Imagine if we have a downturn politically and an international conflict.
And what's worst case scenario that you're warning of? To be very specific, to be
very specific, the value of money, internal conflict that is not the normal democracy as we know it, and international conflict in a way that is highly disruptive to the world economy and could even be a military conflict, just as these breakdowns have occurred before. You know, we have a new order that began in 1945, a new monetary order and a new geopolitical order. And these go in cycles that can be measured. And I worry about the breakdown of that kind of an order, particularly since it doesn't need to happen, because there are certain things that could be done in which this is better, a better restructuring of these debts and actions taken.
So that takes me to my next question. You have this book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle. What is the solution here?
Well, there are a series of solutions, but let's take the most important.
And we have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. 3% of GDP, bring that deficit down. It can be done in a bipartisan way, the way it was done between 1991 and 98. I explained how that could be done, doing things together for the greater good. And then internationally on all of these issues, to use American strength, but to negotiate well, to lay out ways in which bad conflict and inefficient policies don't create great disruptions, but get us through this in an orderly way.
All right, Ray Dalio, thank you so much. Your book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, family. So, first big thing, are we heading for a recession? Dalio says we're really close, but he's more worried about something bigger, a total reset of how our financial system works. Now, that might sound dramatic, but let me explain it with something we all understand. Credit cards, for example. Imagine you make 60,000 a year, but every year you're spending 75,000, which is $15,000 over per year. You're using your credit card to cover the gap. That works for a little bit, but eventually the bill comes due. Creditors stop trusting you, interest rates goes up, you start drowning because the credit card that you were using to fill the gap for your irresponsible spending, because you make 60,000 a year but you're spending 75,000 a year over, isn't sustainable no more. So that's basically what the US government has been doing for years. Spending more than it earns. Right now our debt is so high that even people who usually loan us money are starting to hesitate. And when that happens, it affects everything. And what happens if we don't fix it? Here's how it could hit you directly. Groceries, rent, gas all go up. Your savings worth less because the dollar gets weaker. Borrowing money, credit cards, mortgages, interest rates get higher. Jobs, slower economy equal fewer opportunities. So when Dalio mentions, he even warns that if we don't change direction, it could lead to bigger problems, like problems within our own country, which is eternal conflict here in the US, or global problems with our trade partners and global conflict between other countries. Sorry for the tongue tie. So that sounds crazy, but think about it. When money gets tight and people get desperate, bad decisions start happening. Historically, that's what led to wars and collapses in the past, right? And here Dalio goes and he proposes something that's so magnificent and so effective, would be very, very effective for the best interest as us, the average Joe American out there, and just us Americans in general, and the country as a whole. He mentioned the 3% pledge, he mentioned, right? And he said a bipartisan agreement. So we know what that means, right? Democrats, or the hypocrites, and the Republicans coming to the table, being logical, removing their emotions from the conversation, and having the best interest of us, we, the American people. And he mentioned for the greater good. Now we know how far left and far extreme the Democrats are, as they're going up, setting Teslas on fire. Um, Individuals are getting basically paid to protest against Elon Musk destroying an American company by destroying cars, and also it creates a division amongst Americans because they're mad because they're driving a Tesla, because the owner that they may not like, because the owner that they may not like, which is Elon Musk, who is actually trying to help us as a country cut out the bloat, cut out the unnecessary spending. Americans are angry because the far left, the Democrats, are basically promoting violence. by paying these protesting people to go against the very thing that's actually for their greater good. Why I say that, you must ask? Is because if you think about it, let's use the Department of Education for example, family. The Department of Education, we have kids not reading, being able to read at a fourth grade level. The education, public school education system, let me be frank, is trash. And the simple fact that not only are kids are illiterate and not able to read amongst a fourth grade beyond a fourth grade level, teachers are not getting resources as much as possible, and let alone the administration that is in the school system. And just imagine all of those individuals, like the teachers and the administration that is at the forefront and being affected the most, and trying to really pour into these children to basically build them up to learn what they need to learn academically to thrive. But then you have a trash school system that's not getting the resources needed because the money is being spent to fuel the corrupt agenda of the Democratic Party, the far extreme left, right? And just imagine how they're protesting against that violently, along with destroying Teslas because they have a vendetta against Elon Musk. Do you really think a bipartisan agreement would happen? Falling in line with Dalio, Ray Dalio's 3% pledge? No, I don't think so. It's they're not going to agree. The Democrats are not going to agree. You either get along with them, or you either get in line, or you get out the way with them. And they're not reasonable, and they don't care to represent the everyday American people. And let alone they're coming at Donald Trump for trying to abolish the Department of Education. Yes, the Department of Education may have been effective at one point period in time, but now it's just trash. Not to mention that Elon Musk, and a lot of times when you uncover the mask and now the truth comes to light, of course, individuals are going to be infuriated with anger because they're being exposed, like the Democratic Party. So the Department of Education that they're trying to vouch for, the Democratic Party is trying to vouch for, and coming at Donald Trump for abolishing it, when all Donald Trump is basically trying to put it back in the hands and the power of the American people, letting the American people pave their way by being able to let their child of any school of choice they choose from a public school standpoint, because it's a public school, they should be able to choose the school that's for the best interest of their child, that's actually giving the resources that they need, not be succumbing to what the government is telling them where their child is going to go to school at, and they only can go to this school because the government said it and it's in your district. Now I give you a further example. I'm a single father with a child with special needs. My son is autistic and nonverbal. Go check out a video. I did 2 videos recently. Just showing my typical everyday life of being a father full time, right? And the thing is, my child has a IEP, an individualized educational plan. And what that is an educational plan that has extra strategies along with all the with an outline of all the needs that your child may need, that have special needs, to build them up to be independent, to be in a regular school setting like everybody else. So they just need more work, they just need more time, they need more resources. Like in my son's case, a speech therapist and an occupational therapist. A speech therapist to help with speech, of course, occupational to help with fine motor skills like writing vertical lines and using a pencil and those things. Just to add some context, right? And the point I'm trying to make is, if my child has to succumb to a certain district just because I live there, but they don't have a therapist in that school and my child needs a therapist, or they don't have a special needs class that's more restricted, where it's more personalized to him to have that one-on-one teaching, he is going to suffer in the general class with a lot of kids because he gets overstimulated, absorbing all the information. It can be easily frustrating. So the very thing of the Department of Education, which is a broad blanket government entity, a department, is not really on the ground to see what everyday Americans deal with within trying to fight and vouch for their child really hard to get what their child need along with the resources because they aren't going to each state individually and situationally to make sure the schools have what they need and being propped up what they need to help kids with special needs and just kids in general. So then you have all these schools, which is trash, but just to say, oh no, we're helping this school, we're helping that school. But what is the point of having a school if it's not effective to help the child thrive academically, right? And the thing is, you can have a lot of schools, but then if you have a lot of schools and the 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 real you can't measure how effective these schools are, to me, it just look like the Department of Education want to prop up all these schools, even if it's schools that's not effective, at the detriment of kids not being able to read beyond a fourth grade level, just so they can funnel money with their corrupted agenda to make sure it basically they enrich themselves by covering up their sneakiness to funnel money the way they want, taking away the priority of kids and everyday American kids to thrive academically. They're not really focused on making sure that the everyday average American and their children have a way and have a way paved to be successful in life. Because if they was, they would give you options, hear you, be on the ground, actually interact with you, and making sure that they're measuring that scale that scale when it comes to assessing the education system to make sure kids continue to thrive and have a way. All Donald Trump is saying, look, put it back in the hands of the states. The states basically make decisions based on the residents in their state that vote to make sure the money get allocated better because the people that really suffers at the end is the everyday residents of the states. And the Department of Education is such a big department, they can't go state to state. So if the everyday American that's a resident in that state can vote and their vote will exercise where the money goes in their state to make their school systems better, then they have a choice to be able to choose where they want to put what school they want to put their child in. Then it will expose what schools is actually good and effective or not. And you're able to measure because the schools that is not good, they won't have a high enrollment and then the funding they won't be able to receive. But what I'm trying to say is, family, that the Democratic Party, using the Department of Education example, is they don't care about nobody but themselves and self enriching in themselves, making problems, acting like they're helping American people. But the problem is only to cover up their tactic of worrying about themselves. So, for example, I could put up a building, right? And say, oh, I'm helping out the homeless. But really, I'm putting up the building so I can get, let's say I can get subsidized or I can get paid from the government to basically um house homeless people under Section 8. So that's unlimited money sent to me from the government, which is sustainable and consistent money coming in every month from the government because they're covering these individuals to have a home. But however, let's say I'm not assessing the building and making sure the building is livable and I'm just pocketing the money myself. All the Democratic Party is pocketing money off the detriment of American people. Elon Musk is exposing it. Donald Trump would want American people to actually live, pave a way, and be successful in life and live the American dream. That's it. But you can't do that if one party is for themselves and another party is for the American people. So the 3% pledge is typically, well, actually out the window. That's why I say it won't happen. But that's Dalio's solution. He says Congress needs to make a promise to the country to bring our national debt under control, and he calls it the 3% pledge. In regular terms, if the government spends $100, it should be only spending $103, not 110, not $115 or more like it's doing now. It's like telling someone, hey, if you just stop blowing all your money, we can get you back on track. This isn't about cutting everything or raising all taxes. It's about being responsible, like any adult should. We done this before in the 1990s. Both parties actually worked together to fix the budget. Dalio says we need the same energy now, right? And I agree with him. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Now, we have Donald Trump, right? Quick side note, there's been a lot of noise about Trump's age or mental sharpness, and he just took a cognitive test and reportedly got a perfect score. Say what you want about the guy, but he's moving around. He's doing press, holding events. He's clearly not falling apart. Check it out.
So I think most of you have seen they released my physical. I did the physical on Friday, and I understand it was a very good report. The numbers were perfect, and I took a cognitive exam, and I would challenge anybody here to meet those marks because I have a perfect mark. Were you impressed by that?
I am impressed, and I'm not going to take that test.
But you're not that surprised, right?
I'm not surprised at all.
You aren't. That's good.
Meanwhile, critics have pushed Joe Biden forward for another term, even with all the obvious signs of decline. That's a whole nother conversation. But here's what matters. This isn't about picking sides. This is about picking leadership that takes the economy seriously. Dalio doesn't care, just like the everyday American people don't care if it's Trump or someone else. He's just saying, just like we the American people are saying, we have to fix how we spend money before the whole system breaks. And what can you do? We the people can do all about this, right? Let's pay attention. Don't just scroll past the economic news. Understand what inflation, debt, and interest rates really mean for you on an individual basis, as we all should as Americans and citizens and residents of our states. Vote smart, not just in national elections, but your local elections are actually more important than your national election. Support leaders who actually want to fix the budget, not just hand out freebies or make promises with no plan. And protect your money. Learn how inflation works. Save smart. Don't rack up personal debt. Don't be on Klarna. Don't be on PayPal later. None of that stuff just because everyone else is doing it. This isn't just government stuff, it's your life. It's the if the economy crashes, the American people will feel it. We will feel it, not the people in DC. So here's the bottom line. Ray Dalio is ringing an alarm bell, not because he want to scare us, but because he's seen this movie before. The warning signs are there. That's why I love my seniors. I love older folks because obviously they've been here longer than me. I'm just a young 25-year-old young man. And obviously I'm always excited to get wisdom from my old folks. Their mind is gold to me. They're viable, and younger people my age and younger, and I teach my son this to be an effective listener, but also understand these people have came before you and they know so much more. And you can save yourself by just listening because they have so much wisdom. It's amazing. But we still have time to change the ending, Ray Dalio is saying. And if our leaders act like adults, we can avoid the crash. If they don't, we're headed towards a very real, very, very real, very painful wake up call. So let's stop getting distracted by the headlines, drama, or petty fights and start paying attention to what things that actually matter. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Are we heading towards a reset? Can Congress actually fix this, or are we in too deep? Let me know down in the comments. If this helps you understand what's going on, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to know the truth behind all the headlines. Remember, let that love supersede the hate, family. Spread that peace, love, and positivity, baby. Yes, I always got to say it. I always got to say it. And stay smart, stay prepared. And guess what, family? I'll see you in the next one.